The most fundamental aspect of a modern education is learning how to learn. It's the floor, it's not the ceiling. And so we want to equip our young people with the skills, the tools, the attitudes, the attributes and the dispositions to embrace any possible future.
On paper, the proposal looks great, but there's every chance those students are going in and potentially failing. But I love that they're encouraged to do so. That's where the learning is. Young people get a really bad rap in the media as being disengaged, as not being interested, as being hard to manage.
Everybody could do traditional ways of feedback because they don't feel safe to be able to provide real feedback. Students, your teachers are more likely to innovate, take risks, and be daring.
If you can have a difficult conversation and giving and receiving feedback as a beginning point,
you are so much more prepared for the real world. Podclass acknowledges the traditional and true custodians of the land we meet on here today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We're grateful to be here.
So no one told you teaching was gonna be this way. Your lesson plans are jokes, your patience broke, you're feeling in disarray. It's like you're always stuck in report writing, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your school year. But I'll be here for you
when the students start to riot.
I'll be here for you
even if your coffee has gone cold.
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.
Welcome back to Podclass. As always, you are joined by myself, Will.
Me, I'm Skye. Hello.
hello me, I'm Amanda.
And we have Dr Adrian Cam back in the studio. Welcome back.
We do.
Pleasure to be here again. Thanks.
And if you missed Dr. Adrian Cam in our last week's episode, go ahead and pause, go back and listen to that. It is not one that you want to miss.
No, absolutely
But if you are unsure who Dr. Adrian Cam is, please let me introduce him. He is the principal of Westbourne Grammar School and the managing director of its board. He's a strategist, innovator, and someone who's spent his career challenging outdated models of education and building what comes next. Under his leadership, Westbourne has launched nationally recognised initiatives like the GEAR.ed Middle Years program, a dedicated AI academy, and is currently developing a brand new campus designed for future-focused learning. He holds a PhD exploring teacher agency and complexity in schools, and his work has been recognised with some of the highest honours in education, including very recently being named the 2025 Australian Principal of the Year. We are so excited to have you on the podcast again. So let's get into it. Thank you for being here.
Something that you said last episode, a question that sort of, I guess, maybe it's led you down this journey of innovation is like, what could schools be? So this is the one on the future of schools.
Yeah, designing schools for our future. And having spent a little bit of time off air chatting with you, there are some incredible initiatives within your school that are just that. They are initiatives to prepare young people for the future that embody 21st century learning skills. So could you just start by sharing with us a little about GEAR.ed, knowing that it's won some national recognition and it is a leading initiative. Tell us a little about GEAR.ed. How is it working for your middle years and what are the impacts and outcomes that you're seeing?
Yeah, sure. I think it comes down fundamentally, before I get into GEAR.ed, is our philosophy at the school, which is about the most fundamental aspect of a modern education is learning how to learn. And so we want to equip our young people with the skills, the tools, the attitudes, the attributes and the dispositions to embrace any possible future. And so learning directly from others is still absolutely important. We want our children to be highly literate and numerate, but we also understand that school can be so much more than that. And so there are various initiatives at our school, and GEAR.ed is one of them, where we want to position our young people as the creators of tomorrow's technology, and we want to do it today. And so we need to provide the curriculum, the time, the space and the resources for them to engage with complexity. So GEAR.ed is a subject, a compulsory subject in Year 8, which talks about hearts, minds, hands, bits and atoms. So it's about it's about the merger of the physical and digital realms and blending that in with giving students really interesting problems to solve and then getting out of their way and enabling them to be creators. And so we have students starting not-for-profit businesses. We have students utilising machine learning to design computer vision systems. We have students not just utilising 3D printers, but we want them to actually build 3D printers from the inside out. And so, and we're seeing that because children are capable of so much more than we give them credit for sometimes. And so I guess in a nutshell, that's the essence of GEAR.ed. Very, very different to, I guess, what would traditionally or typically be your maths or science class.
Yeah.
Last
so
episode, we were asking you for jobs. This episode, I think we're going to ask you students for if they want to be hired.
Are they? And do they like who are the teachers or the educators that are running?
I was about to ask this. How does this fit into the curriculum? How are you making it work in your schedules?
Yeah, so it's a core component of our curriculum. We have a head of subject area, the head of GEAR.ed, who's been the big driver behind a lot of this. But we have a team of teachers who have been engaging in some sustained professional learning over a period of 12 months. We bring in outside and external expertise as we need to, and we make sure we have all the materials and resources available. But it's very experiential. So it's almost unstructured, if you like. So there are materials, there are resources, there are experts, and then there are student ideas, and then we step back and see how it all unfolds. Now, that doesn't say there's not a role for the teacher, because the teacher then becomes more of a coach or a guide.
Or a facilitator of learning.
Someone who can perhaps steer the student in a particular direction if needed. But oftentimes what we see peer-to-peer learning as well. And so students become experts in particular fields and disciplines, and then they can use that to work with others. And they actually feel really good about that because all of a sudden they're the experts and they're teaching others.
I love that. And we spoke a little bit in the last episode about, distributed leadership across your school and how teachers are invited and encouraged to share ideas and kind of put these progressive ideas and innovations forward. And I guess it kind of begs the question is, how do you promote the mindset that teachers can see curriculum as not being a prison, but as being a platform?
Yeah, it's
because it can feel so overwhelming.
That sounds intense, but sometimes it can feel so restrictive when you have that mindset that you are just defined by the curriculum and these are the parameters I've got to work in. But obviously Westbourne's really challenging that.
I love that metaphor or analogy. It shouldn't be a prison, but too often it is seen that way.
Yeah,
it's seen as a step-by-step recipe that educators have to follow. But I think the way that I like to see it is that a curriculum is a starting point. It's the floor. It's not the ceiling.
Yeah.
And if we think of it in that way, we also need to be cognizant of the fact when we're talking with teachers that we're giving them permission. We're giving them permission to innovate outside of the curriculum. We're giving them permission to go off on tangents. We're giving them permission to talk with students about their subject area or their discipline, and based on the interests of children or their queries or their questions that they might have, that it's okay to deviate. It's okay to take a pause. It's okay to go in a different direction. Ultimately, you might need to come back.
Of course.
But give yourself permission because at Westbourne Grammar in my school, I'm giving teachers permission to do that. And I think what we're seeing is some fantastic innovations coming from the ground up as a result. We've got drone academies. We've got AI academies. We had this project 6 months ago where a group of students were really interested in retro arcade video games.
Very cool.
Pinball machine.
And so they came to me with a proposal and said, we'd really like to build a retro arcade gaming cabinet and machine. And so they did a proposal, they had all the equipment, the list, the budget, and I said, absolutely, approved, let's do it. And they got all the equipment in and they built a retro arcade video game cabinet and machine from scratch.
Oh,
and
wow.
What a great real world project.
Yeah.
Literally, and there's so many learnings there as well.
But I just love this, right? Because there's nothing, on paper the proposal looks great, but there's every chance those students are going in and potentially failing at, pulling that together. But I love that they're encouraged to do so because that's where the learning is, right?
There was no instructions and it took them longer than they thought it would.
Yeah,
and they made some mistakes along the way. And I said, listen, you've got all the time and all the support you need, as long as I'm the first one that gets a go. and the rest is history. But what a fantastic learning experience that definitely sits outside of our traditional notions of curriculum.
Yeah,
but I would also I guess, yes, within your school, you provide that permission for teachers and to explore the curriculum. What do you have maybe advice for other schools and other school leadership to embrace that without the fear of change or without that fear of things going absolutely rogue?
Even if it's just like embedding problem solving more so in classrooms. Or if you are looking to support the young people in your school or your community to develop their public speaking skills, Youth Engagement Project facilitates public speaking workshops for young people. We follow our 4C public speaking framework, where we explore courage, communication, clarity, and connection, the skills and tools aligned with all 4 of those C's that are essential for effective public speaking skills and communication in general. Give us a call or send us a message.
I think it starts with empowering teachers and starting small in your school context, because every school context is different. But look for the early adopters, look for those that have got the ideas or want to do something slightly different, and encourage them and see how it goes. But ultimately, I think it comes down to how you view children and how you view what education is for. And for me, the way I view children is that we need to be instilling in them an identity of becoming. We want them to become mathematicians, to become artists, to become engineers, to become architects.
Writers and creators.
Right.
And
we don't want to just teach them English. We don't want to just teach them maths. That's part of it, because we should always be willing to learn from the direct instruction of others, because that's a good way of learning. But that's not the only way. So how do we provide time and space for children to engage with complexity, to become the creators of tomorrow, and actually be able to do things that really interest them? How do we explore their passions? And then how do we expose them to things that they don't yet know they love?
So can I just ask, we talk a lot, there's like a real rhetoric, right? And young people get a really bad rap in the media, often the way they're even portrayed in TV shows, as being, disengaged, as not being interested, as being hard to manage or whatever it might be. Problematic, all of these labels, right, that we kind of slap on them. Obviously at Westbourne and in your teaching staff and in your own philosophy, you don't view young people with that, they're not painted that way at all in your eyes. How do you promote or maintain that view of young people as being leaders, as being able to choose and have autonomy in their school and in their education? Like, how does that get promoted?
It's a constant work in progress, and it comes down to communication. And, who are the stakeholders at our school? Well, they're the teachers, they're the students, they're the parents, they're the alumni. And we're constantly realigning our expectations and re-educating around what young people in particular, are capable of. And so we're always looking for new opportunities to promote young people as capable citizens of the world today. Yeah. We have students on interview panels for teachers and leadership positions at our school.
So good.
Because why shouldn't we?
That's very cool.
Yeah,
because why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Because their perspective, their insight, it matters.
Yeah.
Because these are the people that are ultimately going to be working with them in classrooms.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're great advocates for the culture of the school. And
so that's something practical most schools could implement, right?
Tomorrow.
You could exactly right.
It doesn't cost anything. And in my experience, it's really funny because the students, whether they're senior leaders at the school or whether they're a student at the school, it doesn't matter where they are positioned in the school, they'll come in. You'll give them the brief. Here's what we're looking for. Here's how an interview is structured. We'll ask some questions. It's a conversation. If something comes up, you can intervene, jump in with a question that you're thinking of. The first interview, they're really nervous. By the second interview, they're sitting back, they're spinning their pen around, they're grilling the candidates, because you've given them an opportunity to really step into a space that they've never been before.
Whilst being supported as well.
And they feel safe.
Yeah. Well, you're elevating your platforming voice, right? Student voice and the voice of young people and making them feel important and valued.
And I was about to say the number one principle when it comes to co-design is nothing about us without us.
Right.
And I think that is this in action, right? This is a genuine co-design.
Because we see it so often, it's performative, right? It's not actually something that takes place. It's taken seriously. It's really just tick a box. Oh yeah, we consulted with a group of young people. But to see it in practice proves that it's effective and that it works and that, it's elevating young people.
And I'm curious, what are the other practical things that you do to be able to get feedback from young people? Because we know that last episode you shared around everything that you do is learning and growing and becoming better as both a leader but also a school. How else do you collect feedback from young people?
I think we do it quite traditionally in some ways, surveys, satisfaction surveys, but we also do it in probably some quite innovative ways as well. We have a student tech committee, we have student tech support almost like an Apple Genius bar, if you like. and they have elevated privileges, network privileges, so that they can actually do real tech troubleshooting to support students and teachers. So that comes with extra and added responsibility.
And you know what's so cool about that? Sorry to jump in, but that's like such an intrinsic motivator, right? It's not like it's like a reward, like an extrinsic reward motivator. That's like an intrinsic thing driven by their curiosity and their desire in that
From
area.
trust.
That's so cool.
And we encourage them to speak truth to power, you know, and oftentimes, and what I mean by that is oftentimes in my role, people will tell me what I want to hear. But we've been working with our students a lot to make sure that they feel as though that they can give me feedback about things that matter. So one example happened a couple of weeks ago where I had two 17-year-old students come into my office, set up a meeting. They wanted to talk to me and provide some feedback about a fundraising activity that I did and their perception of it. And it wasn't all positive.
Yeah.
And so, but they felt
Safe
and empowered to be able to do so and to give me some feedback that sort of made me sort of, you know,
Because
I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me that feedback. But what courage.
Yeah.
You know, what courage.
And I think that's the difference because you said, yes, we do some traditional ways of feedback. Everybody could do traditional ways. Not everyone's going to get the feedback.
No.
Because they don't feel safe to be able to provide feedback or at least real feedback as well.
And in fact, in many organizations and schools, we would see not even that kind of honest feedback given on an anonymous questionnaire.
And that goes back to psychological safety, right?
Exactly. It all comes back to psychological safety and perceived trust. And I love this talk, truth to power, did you say? Yeah. Whereas they're coming in face to face with the principal and giving this robust
How bold.
feedback.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
Excellent.
it. I really do.
And then it's also real world preparation. Like if you can have a difficult conversation, if you can explore and navigate these kinds of areas and giving and receiving feedback as a beginning point, I mean, you are so much more prepared for the real world.
Your students, your teachers are more likely to innovate, take risks and be daring, right? Because they're okay to make mistakes.
Yes. Okay. So clearly it's lots of progressive, initiatives, lots of innovation. We cannot not speak about AI Academy. And obviously it's like it feels like, and I'm very keen to learn more because it feels like, is it a bit of a rebrand of STEM? Like what's the vibe? We know it's
why is it not just another STEM program?
Yeah. What's happening? Tell us about AI Academy.
Well, it's now in its third year of operation and it started as a co-curricular opportunity off the back of the launch of ChatGPT through OpenAI back in November 2022.
Yeah, our
Favorite
fourth
day of the
unofficial
year.
employee. Yeah. No.
We celebrate that annually.
But connecting back to my philosophy around innovation, that innovation should be a combination of top down and bottom up. I had a conversation with a couple of people at our school and I said, this is going to be big. And we really need to be riding the wave of this, I think, and leading the conversation in many ways about what's possible in schools. Because even back then, there was this conversation around, AI is just going to make lazy learners. It's just going to enable cheating on the English
Which is
essay.
something we have to talk about more, but keep going for now.
Cool. But we wanted it to be so much more than that because already we'd been speaking with our community around we want students to be the creators of tomorrow's technology and we want them to do it today. So if AI is going to be part of our future, and it absolutely is, it's the biggest technological disruption and transformation probably since the internet. Well, how do we make that happen for kids? And so what we wanted to do is move beyond using ChatGPT, move beyond using Gemini or whatever the AI platform is, and actually give students the opportunity to create their own AI and use their AI to create products. So they're learning about machine learning. They're learning about data. They're learning about data warehousing, data architecture. They're learning about analysis, really sophisticated mathematical concepts. And they're combining that into a real world application where they can harness AI to do something that they couldn't do before. So that was the inception of the AI Academy. And it's now grown. It continues to be a co-curricular offering for students across year 5 to year 12, but it's now part of our curricular offering as well.
Yeah, awesome.
And onwards and upwards from here. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so how do you, just to talk AI just for a few more minutes, how do you mitigate, I guess, some of the fear that is often associated. And I don't want to absolutely paint older teachers in this light, but there can often be a little bit of fear around what is not understood. And I think AI there's like a lot of uncertainty around what it is and where it's headed and what it means, even for things like teachers' jobs.
But also for learning, there's a huge rhetoric around, is it making lazy learners? Or, what work is actually being produced genuinely by students.
Yeah. So how does your school, I guess, approach it?
I think it can create lazy learners if we let it.
Yeah.
But if we're having conversations with teachers and students and our community around the benefits and the opportunities of AI, in addition to the challenges, I think we're actually being really transparent and we're modelling what we believe in as a school. So one example is that we talk with students about cheating. We talk to them about plagiarism. We use AI and we have an AI assessment scale. So this assessment, you should use AI and here's why. But this assessment, you shouldn't and here's why. And we're using AI for them to become better writers. Someone once told me that if you make the simple things simple, you make complexity possible. And I really believe that. And I'm an optimist, so I know people will have different
I didn't pick
views.
that up at all. So,
But I am an optimist. And so I think what AI will enable is it'll enable greater efficiency, greater productivity, greater effectiveness by eliminating the more routine and administrative aspects to school from a teacher and a student perspective. And it will enable us to really lean into complex and sophisticated thinking, for us to grapple with concepts that might not have been accessible to 13, 14, 15-year-olds. It might have been something we once did in fourth year university. But all of a sudden, we're enabled to look at things through a different lens, look at things through a different perspective. And let's face it, AI is here to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Every single job in the future will be disrupted in some way through AI. But that's not to take away the humanness or the human element of what makes us our species.
yeah.
We will always need the arts. We will always learn languages. They might become increasingly irrelevant, controversially, but we will always need languages. We will always need the arts. We will always need to engage with philosophy. We'll always need to read and to write and to connect. That's what makes us human. But AI is changing things. It's changing the conversation. And I firmly believe that if schools aren't the ones leading the conversation, who is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
Love
What a
that.
great point to finish on.
I now want to be a student as well.
Can we just ask one final question before we wrap this episode? If you could give a piece of advice or a piece of encouragement to educators listening and educators across Australia, I'm curious about what that would be, because as we spoke about in our previous episode, the rhetoric around education is so negative, and teachers can feel that they're wanting to innovate and they're wanting to be progressive, but they can feel restricted by curriculum and by bureaucracy. And what would your summation be, or what would your piece of advice or piece of inspiration be to our educators listening?
That you do an amazing job.
Yeah.
Hold your head high.
Yeah.
Keep advocating for the profession. Keep advocating for the young people in your care, and keep looking for ways to do things different, because it is possible, and every context is different, and you have different parameters and different boundaries and different contexts that you work within, but never settle. Never settle. That
Beautiful.
would be my advice.
Thank you.
Oh,
You
thank
have
you
been
so
listening to Podclass with Dr. Adrian Cam. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. I'm obsessed.
You have a new number one fan.
We'll see you next week.
See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.
Thanks so much for tuning into Podclass. If you've enjoyed this episode, we would adore it if you could go on to Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and leave us a review. 5 stars would be lovely. We would love to get this podcast into as many ears as possible so we can help and support as many people as possible who help young people. And if you're not already doing so, please go along to Instagram and follow us at podclass.aus.